In this video, I'm going to break down the story behind the album covers that the band The Killers have used across their discography, from their first release to their latest. The band's first cover was that of Hot Fuss. The photograph that makes up the album cover was taken in 2000 by photographer Matthias Klammer. The picture was taken on the southern region of the suburbs of Beijing, China. The text on the building reads, "Construction Material Development." However, I doubt the band knew this, as it seems that they just chose the photo because it looked cool. According to Brandon Flowers, the label just handed them a pile of stock photos to choose from because they didn't believe the artwork would be gaining any traction for a new band. An album that was meant to sell 5,000 copies, then went on to sell 7 million, thanks to the track Mr. Brightside. It just goes to show that you can make something iconic and successful without trying to. Speaking of iconic, the what has now become iconic logo of the band is first seen on the cover of this album. It takes inspiration from the cover of the Greatest Hits album of Elvis, which was new at the time. The second cover is for the album Sam's Town. Unlike the last one that was just picked from a pile of stock photos, the band specifically chose these elements, so let's break them down. The photo was taken by Dutch photographer Anton Corbijn. This is the Killers' attempt to put an end to their label as the best British band from America.
We were somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean when it came to that. We grew up on a steady diet of British rock and roll and new wave music, and it was a healthy diet. I think a lot of us coming up at that time grew up listening to a lot of the same music and funneling it through our own towns or our own experiences, and it came out how it did. I once saw an interview where people asked Lady Gaga who her favorite British bands were, and she said The Killers and Pet Shop Boys. And we didn't think like that at the time. That was the type of music we wanted to make, and that was what was coming out of us. And now looking back on it, I see it, and there's a melancholy to it that kind of exists over here that's, that we don't necessarily tap into in America.
Another symbol the band uses to reinforce the fact that this is their American album is the fact that there is a desert bighorn sheep on the left-hand side of the cover. This is actually the state animal for Nevada, where the band is from. The woman in the photograph is fellow musician Felice Lazare. She actually opened for the band on multiple occasions during the tour of the album, wearing the Miss Pageant sash as seen on the cover. And of course, the classic Killers logo returns. Sawdust is their next album, and it's a compilation of not yet released songs and B-sides that they have accumulated from their past two album cycles. This is why it's called Sawdust, as Sawdust is an offset product of a completed craft project, in the same way that these songs are offset products of their previous albums. The cover reinforces this, with the perfectly carved hand at one end and the broken and chipped wood at the other end. And of course, the logo returns in its same position. The next album is Day and Age. This cover takes the dots from the logo and makes the whole album cover out of it. Paul Normansell was enlisted by the band to create the cover. He also made portraits of the band members in the same art style that were used in promotional material for the album and on the music video for Human. Rolling Stone actually named the cover the best cover of 2008 after they did a fan vote. And just like other album covers by the band, it's clear to see that the Day and Age album cover is taking inspiration from the Nevada desert where the band is from. The same design is also used for the Live at the Albert Hall album cover. All they did was just add the Albert Hall in London to the cover, as well as add some cactuses at the side. The next album is Battleborn. Just like some of the other album covers by the band, they've tried to use this cover to show off the band's home region. The horse and the car that can be seen on the cover are also referenced in lyrics on the album itself. Ed Mell seems to be inspiration for this cover, as the cover seems reminiscent of some of his landscape paintings. The lightning bolt between the text Battleborn also became a symbol for the tour, being featured on Brandon Flowers' keyboard. The next Killers album is another compilation album, this time of their greatest hits. The name Direct Hits is obviously a reference to the fact that it is their greatest hits, as well as the fact that the album cover is a target. The dates 2003 is when the band started, and 2013 is the year that the album came out, obviously showing that this is their 10th anniversary album. The most important thing to remember from this album is the fact that it's the last time we see the iconic logo in that position on the cover. The next album is also a compilation album, which is a collection of Christmas songs that the band has made over the years. The cover loses the iconic Killers logo and instead replaces it with a desert silhouette in a frame, with a desert Christmas tree with lights on it. This links in with the theme of the album of unusual Christmases, especially with the fact that the band is from a desert city, a stark contrast to the typical winter wonderland of other Christmas songs. The next album by the band, Wonderful Wonderful, continues the trend started with the last and includes no logo at all and not even the text of the album name for that matter. A lot of the songs on this album were written for Brandon Flowers' wife. Brandon got married in Hawaii, and in this context the shell could be seen as his wife and his family. Note the fact that it seems to be being held up by a woman's hand. The background of the album also seems to be important, with the fact that it is clearly the Nevada desert, a place where Brandon and his family left to better help his wife and her location triggers of her PTSD. I think this is represented with the fact that the background is blurred and it's a hand and shell of the family that are in focus. The next album, Imploding The Mirage, is actually a painting called Dance of the Wind and Storm. The painting is by African-American artist Thomas Blackshear. The piece of art almost became another member of the band, causing inspiration when creating the record. Brian Rowley, writing for Forbes, notes, the album cover, Thomas Blackshear's Dance of the Wind and Storm, became the band's creative beacon while making Imploding The Mirage. They printed copies and hung them throughout the studio. The producers were looking at it while they were cosmic diving for vibes, Flowers says. I was looking at it while I was stuck on lyrics, and Ronnie was looking at it while he was playing the drums, and the food runners were looking at it while they were bringing food. It was just inescapable. This brings us to the newest album from The Killers, titled Pressure Machine. The album isn't even out yet, so there isn't too much to speak about it. However, what we do know is the fact that the cover image was taken on a highway on the outskirts of Nephi, Utah, by photographer West Johnson. The image is of a roadside inspirational display set up by a local Baptist church. Note that this is the town that Brandon and his parents moved to when he was young.